You're listening to Sea to Sky podcast, For Sisters by Sisters with Marina Thompson and Dana Moreland. Brought to you by Sea to Sky alumni chapter of Alpha Omicron Pi. Hey everyone, this is Marina Thompson, and I'm joined in our virtual studio by Dana Moreland. We're the Sea to Sky podcast hosts, and we decided to shake things up a little bit. In this episode, you're going to learn a little bit more about us. We're going to talk about our AOPI experience, our families, our hobbies. I hope you enjoy our chat.
Hello, Marina.
Hi, Dana. How are you?
I'm good. I'm talking to a beloved sister. It's the end of the workday. Life is pretty good. How are you this fine day?
I'm well. A
Good.
little bit of mixed feelings. Overall, things are okay. It's been really busy at work and it's been really busy at AOPI
Mm-hmm.
and it's been really busy at home. So it's been a little bit of a lot of everything.
Understood. Yeah. Well, and last week was very hectic for us in AOPI alumni land because
Mhm.
our chapter rosters were due. And of course, you were instrumental in getting Sea to Sky's roster together. And I'm the membership chairman for my primary chapter, Reno Tahoe. So there was a lot of pushing to surpass our membership goal and meant email, call, text, and but we got it. And then also for both chapters, getting our nominations for awards recorded because writing the script, putting together the PowerPoint, setting up time to record that is convenient for everyone. It's a big, big project.
It is. Awards is such a big project. I don't know. I feel like since we're all writing scripts, then maybe we should have an option to do a video or submit the script.
I will tell you, you're not the first alum president who has said to me this cycle that they wished, at least for the alumni awards, we didn't have to record them. So I recommend pass it on to the Network Specialist Lifetime Engagement Team. Our staff partner, Kayla Reska, who is a miracle,
She is.
is also the staff partner who oversees the award process. And so she would then share that feedback with the rest of the awards team.
I definitely think that the Chapter Excellence Award
Mm-hmm.
entry was it was hard because you only have 500 words and you have 2,000 worth of saying.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, I think that one was a lot easier to put together and make a strong case.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the rest is like, okay, this one reads like an essay. When you read it out loud, sounds weird. So how do we change it?
Reading it out loud is really key, I think, to have it resonate. It's just different hearing it out loud. And I think that's one of the tips that I share when alum chapters ask me about preparing their award. I say, once you write the script and everything, practice it at least once out loud before you hit record so that you're comfortable saying the words.
Yeah.
I
I think
think
a lot easier for the folks who are actually going through the awards if the video is easier. And that's why we're doing it, in which case, fair enough, because it's a lot of people, a lot of awards.
mhm.
Mhm.
Thinking about the awards evaluators, I've had the opportunity in a prior role when I chaired the Human Resources Committee for AOPI. I was one of the individuals in that role who was an award evaluator. And I will tell you, quite honestly, I found having the nominations written out was very helpful because what I would do is like I would set aside an awards weekend. I would print out all the nominations. I would read all the nominations, and then I would place them physically in the order strongest to weakest. And then I would attach the numerical scores accordingly. And for me, that worked really well. I think it would be much more difficult to do that with the videos. So I don't know if it is easier.
Yeah.
That'd be a great question.
Yeah. I feel like a choice would be a good idea.
Hmm.
Some people are such good presenters that you want to have this freedom of
Yeah.
expression, but then some of us are better at writing.
Hmm.
All right, well, that's a nice warm up.
It is. And, quite honestly, I think it might be interesting to our listeners to hear about the nomination process because in most chapters, it's only a few key individuals who participate in the process, but it really is quite involved. And it's a labor of love for our alumni chapters to put the time and effort in to create the nomination. So I don't know. You are the editor extraordinaire, but they might find that conversation interesting. Who knows?
Well, listeners, if you're hearing this, then
They made the cut.
for me, what was most rewarding so far is that I spoke to another president assuming that they're submitting awards, and she said that they're not doing any awards. And I was like, what are you talking about? You have to.
Right.
Because of these five reasons. And this is just off the top of my head without actually looking into your chapter further and stuff. That's just
Mm-hmm.
stuff I know as like a secondary member. They ended up submitting a couple of awards, which
Good.
I'm really, really happy and I'm pretty positive they're going to get both.
I'm glad to hear that. I do find that a number of chapters are reluctant. Either they're scared of the videoing aspect of it, which it is a process, but also I hear so many chapters say, "Oh, we're not that special," or "We didn't do anything." And first of all, I beg to differ because so many of our chapters are doing really interesting things. And I've asked a couple of chapters that I work with to, instead of thinking about whether you've earned the award or not, think of it as sharing your story, both with your own chapter as well as with the fraternity about what you did this year, because it may be more remarkable than you think. I haven't even thought about asking what do numbers look like this year, but I hope it's very competitive that a lot of groups did submit because our alumni chapters are doing really interesting stuff.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes chapters are what they think. We always do that. That's not anything special. But
Right.
then outside of their bubble, it turns out that that's actually extraordinary. You
Mm-hmm.
just don't know because for so long I think Kayla said this in our last meeting, the ALP, that this year is the most secondary members ever recorded. I
Mm-hmm.
think for a while, everyone was kind of like in their own bubble with their own members. There's no looking outwards to see what other people are doing, and they don't realize that they, in fact, are special.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So I think it's really great. And like another chapter president added me as a secondary member to her chapter. Turns out it's a program that they have in their chapter where they're just like, we think you're really great AOPI and we would like to treat you to a membership to our chapter.
I love that.
So I didn't have to pay anything for it, but now I have this green light to participate in their event.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fantastic. And very likely next year I will join and pay myself,
Mm-hmm.
which I think it's a really progressive way to look at things.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really smart way to do it. One of the chapters that I've been secondary member of for probably about 4 or 5 years now, the reason that I became a secondary member is one of its members was celebrating a milestone in her AOPI journey. And I can't remember what decade it was, but she decided that she wanted to pay for 5 secondary memberships to her primary alum chapter. I was one of the ones she selected, which was a very thoughtful gift. And ever since then, of course, I've continued to rejoin that alumni chapter because I feel a special connection to them because of the thoughtfulness of another sister who's one of their members. And I like what you're telling me about the program that this other chapter shared. And I will definitely be suggesting that to our, not only my local alumni chapter, but the other ones that I work with as well, because what a great way to honor a sister with membership in your alum chapter.
They sent this email saying like, "Hey, someone is thinking of you." And it was like a very sweet sentiment. So when I got the email, I emailed back. I'm like, I'm using this. Thank you.
Yep,
Well, I
I
didn't say
accept.
that. I said, may I please steal this? And what she said is like, yes, because that's how we grow.
Well, and I don't think there's any such thing as stealing among our alumni chapters. I think if we see a good idea that's working for another chapter, use it as well. It's very likely that you're going to adapt it to your chapter in a way that makes sense based on regional preferences or whatever it might be. Membership size, there could be a lot of different factors. So adapt it to a way that it's going to work for your chapter. But yeah, I don't know that there's anything like stealing.
Yeah, maybe I'm just being very dramatic.
Well, I mean, I can't speak for everyone. There might be some alumni chapters that think that they have a great secret sauce and they don't want to share it, but that defeats the purpose of alumni engagement.
Very good point. Very good point. Our secret sauce is that we just share everything.
Right.
It's not a secret anymore.
Yeah.
All
We should
right.
rule the world, I think. I think we should just rule the world, Marina.
Honestly, the world would be a better place if it was ruled by people like the two of us.
A couple of weeks ago, I was in one of my colleagues' office, and there were two of us in this person's office. And for our listeners that don't know, I am a human resources director. And so the other two members were also members of our executive team. They were talking about world domination. And I'm like, I've always thought I would be a very, very benevolent dictator. One of them said, well, Dana, you already sort of are. I was like, okay. But it was meant as a compliment. It's like, you just toe the line, but you do it with the intention of making this a great work environment where people are comfortable. So I was like, yeah, no, I just need to expand my domination, I guess. I don't know.
Well, that's actually very funny because Sea to Sky's AGM is coming up, and one of the items in my presidential report will be where do you want Sea to Sky to be next year in 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
You like to continue to have this Marina dictatorship going on, or would you like to practice actual democracy? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I try to survey the chapter and feel the water and see what the interest is like, but we need some fresh blood. I've already had the ideas.
Well, and a couple of thoughts on that. It's okay when we realize that these other service opportunities pop up. I mean, as president, we do have the authority to appoint people into those roles. Most of the AC bylaws do say other positions as needed, and then they can just be appointed by the president or by the elected officers. That is something to think about because I agree, as a very involved alumni president, and I too was a very involved alumni president, it is easy to take a lot on and have a lot of responsibility come your way. And it is so crucial that we not dictate, delegate, so that we don't have that burnout and so that we can recharge our own batteries, but also to grow future leaders. Because
Yeah.
I will tell you, Reno Tahoe will be 16 years old in May. And I joke, but it's true because many members have told us they would have let me be president for life. I really enjoyed being an alum president. It's not healthy for the chapter for me to, or anyone, any alum president to be in the role perpetually. We do have to grow other members. And there were other things within AOPI I wanted to explore and do, and I couldn't do that and fulfill that role. Now I took on other offices when I haven't served as the alum president. And I would just straight up tell them, I'm like, okay, it's time for me to go do this in AOPI. And I can't do that and be alum president. So let's figure this out. And that's how we started to recruit other women into not only that role but other roles. So sometimes you have to say I can't do this again, and sometimes life does the same thing to us and we're not able to be in that role anymore.
I think it's about the growing leaders. I think
Mm-hmm.
that Sea to Sky has a lot of really inspiring women
I
with a
agree.
lot to offer. Whether or not they give themselves that credit is a different story. So I try
Mm-hmm.
to always point out the reasons why I think they're good at something.
Yep.
The other thing is we have a few, not very many, but we have a few recent
Mm-hmm.
alums. And I think they have a lot to offer because they come from a completely different perspective. So, what is interesting to me in my late 30s may not be interesting to someone in their mid 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting to someone in their mid 20s might be very interesting to me. I just don't know it yet.
Right.
Right? So I think that's the other piece of it. It's that we have a few really, really inspiring women in Sea to Sky, both primary and secondary members who have a lot of experience, who have done it time and time again, and like they have all sorts of other experiences. But we also have these very young women who just graduated or graduated recently, and they have a completely different perspective on life
Mm-hmm.
because they're a different generation. And I think that is such a big thing that we need to absolutely utilize in Sea to Sky and everywhere else, all the other chapters. I'm a member now of 4 or 5 alum chapters. See everyone on Alpha Link because the
Mm-hmm.
roster was due. Some chapters are doing so well. They have like, I don't know, 130 members and 20 of them are first year on us. So I think it's really great that chapters are attracting that young blood. And then it's
Mm-hmm.
also very important to give leadership opportunities to these women so then they can really benefit from this lifelong commitment.
Right. And, I think that is a really great segue into thinking about how I became so involved with AOPI, even as a collegian, because I joined when AOPI came to my campus, the University of Missouri, when I was in my junior year of school. And so clearly, I was not going to be a collegiate member for very long. Working with the alumni, I do have some leadership skills and some other abilities. So I had the honor of being elected the first president. So, working so closely with the local alumni, the advisors, and the alumni chapter, working with at the time it was called the region, now we call them networks, the regional volunteers, and getting to go to convention right out of the gate and seeing so many involved alumni. That's well, I enjoyed my collegiate time. I always had an alumni experience lens on my AOPI membership and recognizing that this was for a lifetime, that it didn't have to be for the remaining 18 months of my college career. That was what has continued to make my experience so rewarding.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Do you have recollections of advisors or other alumni that had an impact on your collegiate experience?
I went through formal recruitment in my second year. I went to Kappa Kappa Gamma's event, and then the next event was AOPI.
Mm-hmm.
And there was Linda Nichols, who is an alum. So her son went to Laurier and she came to Waterloo to hang out with the AOPIs as a segue to see her son. So she was at least two of my recruitment events, and I remember vividly speaking to her at those events. Ginger Banks was at my initiation, her introduction to the ritual after initiation, like the
Mm-hmm.
translating of what just happened. I was so captivated. And then the next kind of event that is very pivotal for me was Founders Day, which was in Toronto. And
Uh,
the Toronto Area Alum Chapter was hosting the event with Beta Tau at University of Toronto, and then Waterloo and Western were both invited. So then that was another chance to meet a lot of alum. And I
mm-hmm.
think what made me stick with AOPI and like really be involved after school was Toronto Area Alum Chapters garden party because they do a welcome to alum status every June at one of the alums' homes with a garden. So the first time around was Linda's home, and it was great because I was still a collegiate, but I lived in Toronto in the summers. Like my family lived in Toronto,
Uh-huh.
so I went, and I was 19 at the time, and in Canada you can drink when you're 19, and they had wine. And I was thinking, oh, wow, when you're an alum, you can drink at
Yeah.
events. That's amazing. So I think that just like the collection of these really positive interactions with alumna, and then
Mhm.
here I am, 15 years later, still being very, 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 very involved.
Right. And I think it's so important, and I love the impact from the very beginning that our interactions with alumni can foster. I went through formal recruitment at Mizzou prior to my freshman year because they do it old school Southern recruitment. And it was before school even started. And I remember alumni at the different recruitment events I went to. And I took the notion that it was a lifetime commitment really seriously. And that's why after that whirlwind week of recruitment, and I mean the first round of parties was three, or events now is what they're called, but um, back in the day they were parties, and the first round at that time took 3 days because it was 18 different stops for you to meet all of the sororities. It was really a whirlwind experience. And but I was just like, oh, I like some of these organizations, but do I like them enough to be a lifetime member? I wasn't ready at that time for that commitment. My junior year and AOPI came to campus, I was in a different place mentally, and I was really convinced there were things about AOPI that resonated.
Okay, well, you're saying that there was 18 different chapters, and then AOI was the 19th then
Mm, well,
the
two have
following year?
left campus in the
Okay.
interim. Yes, two left, and then AOPI came on campus. And a friend of mine from my high school, who was a member of one of the other sororities on campus, she called me up and she said, Dana, there's another sorority that's going to be opening on campus. I think you need to check them out. And at that time, so I was a junior, as I mentioned, I was very involved in student government. I was very, very focused academically. My grades were pretty good. And I had at the time a really great boyfriend. So, or at least, he seemed to be great at that time in my life. And so I just didn't know if I had a lot of room in my life for that. But I valued the fact that she told me, check them out. And then I did a little research and I signed up for an interview. And that's the other thing about being a member of a chartering class, or what we used to call the colony class, is that rather than meeting with collegiate women, your first introduction, the people who decide whether you're going to receive an invitation to membership, are alumni. So the women who interviewed me were Sue Lewis, who was the executive director of AOPI at the time, and Barbara Hunt, who was president of the AOPI Foundation at the time. And I went into the interview, of course, polite and curious and non-committal. And I left 40 minutes later, like I thought I would die if I didn't get a bid, because I was so impressed by these women and our conversation and what they told me about the organization. And I still tell Barb Hunt that when I see her at convention or other events, and she's like, "Oh yes, I remember your interview," and that makes me so happy that she still remembers our conversation back in 1985.
That's very powerful. And I
Yeah.
totally get it. The women who are involved at that level are so inspiring.
Yes.
Just the way they speak, you can relate to every single word they say. I've had a couple of those interactions with AOPI who just talk to you in a way that it speaks to your soul.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how Ginger did it until a year later when I started kind of like hearing the ritual a little better, and I was like, huh, that's what it is.
Right, right. Because one of the things I really treasure about our ritual is that it is very accessible. It's it's not esoteric in that we can live it, we can speak it every single day, and it can influence our lives and the lives of people around us in a positive way if we put it into action. The other thing that I love so much about a ritual, there are many things, but one of the things is that our ritual has stayed the same over these 128 years, and that it was written by four college age women. And I love sharing that aspect of it with our collegiate sisters. I'm like, can you imagine writing a ritual that would still be unchanged, more than 100 years later? Wow. And that it's a very powerful accomplishment. I take a lot of pride in our ritual remaining unchanged.
Yeah, it's very impressive that we have that history,
Mm-hmm.
that these four women were able to have a vision that is still relevant today when so many other things have changed. It just goes back to the values, right? The values don't change.
Right.
So they just had a really strong foundation of values. At the end of the day, that's what matters, right? And I'm glad that you didn't join any of those 18 other groups. Even though in your situation, I feel like it would very easy to have joined any other organization because you have so many women in your family who are part of other organizations. So you have that experience and that example.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. So and I have two trains of thought on that. First of all is I think that our NPC sister groups have more in common with us than differences, right? Our letters are different, but at the core, we're all scholars because we were all founded at institutions of higher learning, or at least advanced learning. And we're all committed to doing good, not just for our organization, but for our greater community. All 26 NPC groups share that history and the commitment to serve others. I do not doubt that I could have resonated with a number of other groups. And I say the same for you. I am also glad that we're both part of the same organization and that it has brought us together. And then my other train of thought is that, yes, I do have a very Panhellenic family. So, of course, I'm a member of Alpha Omicron Pi. My sister, Michelle, is an initiate of Zeta Tau Alpha. My oldest niece, Kelsey, is an alumna of Delta Zeta. My middle niece, Madeline, is an alumna of Alpha Delta Pi. And then my youngest niece, Layla, is a first year student at Butler University in Indianapolis. They have a spring recruitment. So Layla in January went through recruitment. She received a bid from Alpha Chi Omega. So all of us are members of different groups, and I just really like that for us. I mean, would I have loved for one of my nieces to be in AOPI? Yes, because then I could have given them all my AOPI treasures, or I shared them with them, and I would love to share events like convention with them. But it is kind of fun that we're all initiates of other groups. So I am curious to know what motivated you to go through sorority recruitment, particularly from the lens of you were born in a country where that did not have Greek life at all, and then immigrated to Canada. So I'd love for you to trace a little bit of your history for our listeners who may not know, and then tell us how you made that decision to go through sorority recruitment.
That's a very good question. I moved to Canada with my mom, my sister, and my dad when I was 15 years old. I had just finished grade 8 in Bulgaria, and I was placed in grade 10 in Canada. When I graduated high school, I only had 3 years of high school. And the universities here want you to have 4 years of English speaking school before you can go to university, or you have to take a standardized test to prove your literacy levels, which is great. But those tests are really hard and they are forever. So even if you go to university and then you want to apply to master's, you have to take this test. So I decided that I don't want to be bound by a test for the rest of my life. So I stayed in high school for 1 more year. I took a lot of electives. I did a lot of fun things. I had a lot of spares because technically I was done school. But then all of my friends from grade 12 moved on to university, and my closest friends went to the University of Waterloo and Laurier University, which the two are in the same city. They're like 200 street addresses apart. So when I was choosing my school, I was choosing my school based on where I know people. So I went to the University of Waterloo and I had no idea about sororities. But one day in second year, I was walking down my street and there were these two girls doing some arts and crafts on their front lawn. And I stopped and I was like, what you guys doing? So they told me they're in a sorority and they're working on their recruitment posters and that I should check it out. And the way Canadian schools do things here, we cannot have clubs that are just one gender. So on campus, we are known as the Sorority and Fraternities Affairs. And at Clubs Day, you have a representative from each group at the booth, and it's very Panhellenic. There's neutral clothing or Panhellenic shirts, and they're talking about sororities as a whole and fraternities as a whole. So when you're going through recruitment, you're joining this club. And I went through recruitment. Waterloo only has two chapters, Kappa Kappa Gamma and AOPI. I went to both parties and I really just clicked with the AOPIs. I actually, when I put my preference, I only put AOPI because I thought if AOPI doesn't want me, then that's fine, but I don't want anyone else. So then I got my bit. They wanted me.
Yeah, they did.
So yeah, but it's funny because I'm Bulgarian and real Greeks live south of the border from Bulgaria,
Mm-hmm.
like real life Greek people.
But reflecting back at that time in your life, what advice would you now give to that younger version of yourself?
It would have been really good if I could tell myself at 18 not to rush to go to university,
Mm-hmm.
work a little bit, live a little bit, see what I want to do, and then go back and decide what to do. I
Yeah.
realize full well that if I had made different choices, I may not be standing here right now. But I do think that as an immigrant, I only had 4 years of Canadian culture before
Mm-hmm.
I went to university. I had no idea how universities work, where they were, what they do, what does it mean to be top in the country for mathematics or something else. Because Waterloo
Mm-hmm.
is great for engineering and math. It's not so great for arts, which is what I did. And then the other thing was, I would say, is like, where's your heart at? So I would have probably done a lot better at going to college and then maybe supplementing that afterwards with university with something that's more what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But since I can't go back and give myself this elaborate advice, I choose to really cherish the moments that I did have. And even if
Right.
some of them were not the greatest. I still had a great university experience. I followed my friends to school, so I actually had a lot of friends already. Then I
Hmm.
found AOPI, and I didn't take full advantage of the sisterhood aspect of AOPI. I was like a lot of business, business, business. I was VP of membership recruitment. I did really well with recruitment because I really
Uh-huh.
believed in the organization. I really thought everyone should have this experience. But I also, the way I told people that they need to join AOPI was go to all of the events
Hmm.
because it's not just about AOPI or Kappa Kappa Gamma. It's about where do you feel welcome? Where
Right.
do you feel at home? Where do you see yourself in 2 years, 4 years, in 40 years? I've spoken to a few of the people who I recruited, and they all had the same message to me that they joined AOPI because I didn't pressure them to join AOPI. I gave them the option and I encouraged them to look elsewhere as well.
We want you for a lifetime, and we want you to be really sure about that decision. And I think that is a great way to approach the sorority experience. I would also add to the list, is there a place for you to make a positive impact? Which is not always easy to engage teenagers in the concept, ideally, as part of your commitment, both as a collegiate member, but also as certainly as an alumna. How can I contribute, whether it's time, treasure, whatever it might be? How can I contribute to the organization? Where is it that I can put my skills, my interests, my talents to good use? And I think that can be a really key component of the experience as well. Perhaps not a selling point to everyone, but I do challenge people to ask themselves that as well. How can you contribute? Sororities create an environment where you have the opportunity to learn and practice so many skills that can then translate to other areas of your life. For example, like what I do professionally in human resources, one of the things that I do is I'm responsible for recruiting for open positions and participating in interviews. And where did I learn those skills or get to practice them? During sorority recruitment, when I was recruiting women to join our chapter. Like you, I love to plan and execute really engaging, fun, meaningful, sometimes educational events. Where did I get to learn and practice those skills? During my sorority, my both my collegiate and my alumni experience. And we have really fun and engaging and sometimes educational employee events here at work, and those benefit from my sorority experience. Working in groups, which has become so necessary in the workplace of the 25th century, or 25th, 21st century. There aren't a lot of places where you just work all by yourself in a cubicle anymore. You're going to work collaboratively with people. And so the sorority environment, there's that little mini culture where you can practice that. Now, does everybody get all of these skills from their sorority experience? No, you have to also seek out those opportunities. But you're already given this little microcosm where you can learn and practice them. My sorority experience has certainly influenced in my professional pursuit. I always encourage collegiate members think about that and then be able in job interviews to talk about the skills that they've learned that are relevant for whatever job they're interviewing for, that they got the opportunity to practice in the sorority experience, because unfortunately so many people do have a negative impression of sorority. It's tragic. When you quantify, though, the experience and also be able to describe qualitatively the skills that you learned, it can make you stand out in an applicant pool in a very, very positive way. Collegiate chapters, I mean, many of them have budgets of tens of thousands, some of our chapters probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. For a 19 or 20-year-old to be in charge of a budget that size, what an incredible opportunity. And to be able to tell a potential employer that, wow, that is impactful.
Yeah, it's very sad that sororities get negative reputation. When people ask me about AOPI, so what do you do? I'm like, well, we learn how to be good people that participate in society.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm feeling cheeky, I say that I learned how to be a lady. But I always elaborate that it's a really good experience for anyone to know how to present themselves in public, how to carry themselves with poise, but also how to stand their ground and advocate for themselves and other women. So it's not just how to be a lady and say yes and smile. It's
Right.
also how to bring equality to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and all of those volunteer experiences and leadership experiences and all of these things, they really hammer that home. I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
I know that you love to travel
I
and
do.
you work for the Marriott, which is
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. I know that you got your convention flight ticket the moment
Mm-hmm.
it was confirmed that it's happening and these are the dates and this is the time you need to be there and you had a ticket. Uh,
Yes.
what else are you looking forward to this year?
Well, not surprisingly, it's travel related. In October, I am going with a group of AOPIs to Portugal through the Alpha O Adventures. It's the new partnership that AOPI set up with EF Go Ahead Tours to do group travel with women from our organization. I am so excited. Some of our NPC sister organizations also have a similar partnership. And when I learned that they had one, I always have a lot of fear of missing out, FOMO, when I see other organizations doing cool things. And so I was convinced it would be popular with our sisters. Kayla Reska at AOPI headquarters, who is our associate director of lifetime engagement, got in touch with EF and they were very happy to talk with us. They did a survey. We had record breaking response. They received more responses from AOPI in a shorter amount of time than they received from other NPC groups that they partner with. So that was really exciting. And based on the feedback from that survey, Portugal was the first destination that was selected. And I've not been to Portugal yet. So that's great. I was going to go on the trip even if it was someplace that I hadn't been because, my gosh, the thought of traveling internationally with other AOPIs is really great. I'm so proud of us that the trip is sold out, that there's a waiting list. There are 30 plus AOPIs going to Portugal in October, and I'm one of them. I'm so excited about that.
But you also booked that trip the moment it became available, right?
I did. I booked it the night that they had the info meeting. And then the second trip with Alpha O Adventures is in April of next year, so April of 2026.
We don't
And
know where that is yet, do we?
we do, it's Greece.
Oh, is it
So
out yet?
we're going to meet the Greeks. Marina, not only is it out, it is also already sold out.
No, I've missed out.
I actually booked my seat in that tour before the info session. But we've had such great response that I know Kayla has met with them to start discussing our third tour. So when that day and time and location are released, I can't wait to share it. But yeah, there's already a waiting list for the Greece trip. It's phenomenal, the response that we've had.
That's fantastic. I was going to try to do the Greece trip, but I
Uh-huh.
must have missed the email and I blame it on my phone. I am a little disappointed that I missed the Greece, but it's okay.
Well, and you could still get on the wait list. The trip being 13 months from now, 14 months from now, things are going to change in people's lives. Somebody who signed up may not be able to go and that sort of thing. So, something to contemplate.
I was so sure. I was like, don't say anything. You're gonna give it away.
We've had great discussion today about our AOPI experiences, and I know we can go on and on about that because we're both very passionate about AOPI. I think it's also important for our sisters, particularly those that we're in the alumni chapter with, and any collegiate chapter sisters that we might interact with, to understand that we do have full, rich lives outside the AOPI environment as well. I think it's really important to see our sisters and to share with them all of our personhood. So tell us a little bit about what you do outside of AOPI.
Well, I have two wonderful dogs.
Mm-hmm.
I have a 7-year-old lab, Rue, whom you've met.
Yes.
And I have a brand new puppy, Kana. She's turning 11 months in 10 days. They're both crazy. They're amazing. They keep me busy. I haven't been able to go swimming or to the gym since December in any proper routine or anything like that, but I do get 2 walks a day. They walk me.
Mm-hmm.
I have a full-time job at the Law Foundation of BC, which is a great employer, and we do really good work for the community
Mm-hmm.
as we fund different programs that focus on access to justice for people who are underprivileged or have been denied access to justice traditionally. My work is busy, but it's very rewarding. I also have a husband who is a mature student at UBC.
Mm-hmm.
That is creating a layer of complexity for me because I'm the only working adult and I
Mm-hmm.
live in one of the most expensive cities in North America. And then I also try to volunteer when I can. 2 summers ago, I was teaching immigrants how to ride a bike,
Very cool.
which was a very fun experience. And I have volunteered with some local groups that provide meals for street involved folks. I also do some arts and crafts.
Yes.
I actually just finished a pottery class with a high school friend of mine. We went to high school together. We went to Waterloo
Mm-hmm.
together. She moved to Vancouver, and then I followed her 6 months later. And she lives in a adjacent neighborhood to me. So we went to a pottery class for the month of February, and we're just waiting for our last bit of pottery to come out of the kiln and see what we created.
I took a pottery class when I was in high school. So, what types of pottery did you do?
Hand building. You roll out a thin slab of
Mm-hmm.
clay and then you use a template to make it into a shape. I had especially a lot of fun with the glazing, which is
Uh-huh.
making the colors. And prior to this, I guess it was last summer, I did throwing pottery. So that's with the
Mm-hmm.
wheel. And I signed up for the intermediate class because everything else was sold out and I had never done it before. So it was interesting. The instructor sent a video the day before the class actually started, and she was like, I truly hope that everyone has the basics down because we're not going to spend too much time on the basics, but
Yikes.
watch this video. It will be helpful. And I watched this, it was 45 minutes, and I was like just googling at the phone, and I was like, oh my God, what did I do? But as long as you don't have the expectation that you're going to create something that is great and you're going to fire it up and then you're going to glaze and you're going to keep it forever, it's
Mm-hmm.
actually very meditative. The exercise was to build it until it collapses. So you're pushing the boundaries. So for folks in the room, it was very skill building and like understanding what's happening. For me, it was just like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is cool, this is cool. Oh, it collapsed.
There we
Or
go.
like then you make something that looks pretty, but then they tell you to cut it in half to see if the walls of the pot or whatever you made are equal everywhere. So you couldn't be precious with your art, and that was great.
Mm-hmm.
I think being an artist, the biggest challenge is to not be precious with your art. So exercises like that are really important. How about you? What are the things that you do that are not AOPI, even though I don't know how you have time for not AOPI, to be honest?
Well, I do think it's so important to nurture ourselves. And I made a really strong commitment to myself at the end of last year that I needed to make myself stronger and stronger in every way. So physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so there were a couple of things that I committed to doing. And that's been really the things are taking a walk every day, 30 minutes, preferably outside. Today it was rainy, so I had to do it inside. But what I did is I went into the tower where the hotel rooms are, the hotel where I work, and I would go up to a floor. I would walk the length of the floor and then take the service stairwell up to the next floor and do the same thing. So I was able to get my walk in indoors. I am doing like little mindfulness exercises guided by an app. I I find meditating really challenging. Monkey brain, I think, is what the technical term is. I just can't calm my mind down to focus on a chant or something like that. But if somebody's walking me through exercises like count your breaths and do this, I I'm doing that, and also trying to do not trying to do I'm doing stretching, some yoga, and just to build that internal and external foundation for being stronger, because who knows what life is going to throw at us. And I also find, like you, that being creative, being artistic, I find it both engaging and soothing. And so I love to handcraft in a variety of different media, whether it's fabric and I'm sewing, or whether it's creating some miniatures. I like to do so many different arts and crafts. And typically, what I do is I take a class a month, like, I want to learn how to needle felt this month. And then I'll go to a local studio and take a class. And well, part of the challenge is I had a pretty significant injury right after I committed to walking, every day, and fractured a couple bones in my left foot, but they're healed now. So that made me be home more, impinged on my travel too, which made me very frustrated. But I think that was good because I clearly needed to do some introspection and be at home, but also work on creative projects. And I find that to be very restorative in many ways. So that's certainly a big focus. And there are a couple of other organizations I like to volunteer with. In the past, it's been the Arthritis Foundation, and getting Arthritis Foundation activities going here in my community of Northern Nevada. And I find it's really important to find out whatever it is that nurtures us, and for each person it's going to be different. We just happen to have some of the same things that make us feel great, you and I, and meaningfully engage in those activities. I also love to learn. I'm a voracious reader. Like when I go for a walk, I'm also listening to an audiobook, so it's like two for one. But we have to focus on that. My sister, who I mentioned previously, is an incredible human being. She wows me every day. And Michelle is a very skilled long distance runner. Like, she's run many marathons. She's run a marathon in each continent. Yes, even the South Pole. She's completed like a marathon in all 50 states. And then she went back and did them again with the intention of completing the marathon in under 4 hours in every state, all 50
Wow.
states. I know, she's phenomenal. And a couple of years ago, she wrote a book, and she was maintaining a blog. And one of the analogies that she likes to use is because she has a very busy home life. She has 6 children, 3 are married and all very adult. One's about to graduate, number 4 is about to graduate from the university. And then she's got just one at home now. But what she says is so true. It's like what they tell us when we fly, that if the oxygen mask comes down, put your own on first so that then you can help others. And for her, it's running and being physically active. For me, my restorative is being creative. That is what helps me then be able to balance the other interests and things I like to do in life.
Your sister is amazing.
She is.
The longest distance I've ran recently was to the bus stop, and I was out of breath for 20 minutes after. Yeah, I think maybe to wrap it up, we can challenge ourselves and
Yes.
perhaps invite our listeners to accept a challenge to put on your oxygen mask and then go on to help the world. What form does your oxygen mask take?
Right.
And put it on. I pledge myself to put on my oxygen mask, which is in the form of swimming 3 times a week starting tomorrow. I will report back on my progress with the next episode of Sea to Sky podcast. Dana, what's your challenge?
My challenge for myself is that I am going to get back to, after the sabbatical of the injured foot, to my minimum of 30 days of walking every single day. The restorative benefits that I experience when I do it outweigh mental hesitation. So that's going to be my oxygen mask. I agree with this challenge. I want everyone to find what's restorative for you, actively engage in it. I'd love to hear from our listeners if they ever want to share it with us, either on our social media, through email or text. I'd love to know what's restorative for you and how you're going to engage with it.
I love that. Amazing. It was so lovely to connect with you, Dana.
Oh, I always enjoy our time together, and it would be great to live closer, to be able to spend more time in person together. And yet, aren't we so lucky to live in a time where we can see each other whenever we want on our little rectangles? I feel very fortunate for that.
Very fortunate. And good luck with your oxygen mask challenge.
And same to you, sister.
Thanks for listening to Sea to Sky podcast. For Sisters by Sisters with Marina Thompson and Dana Moreland. Brought to you by Sea to Sky Alumni Chapter of Alpha Omicron Pi. Till next time.